It's been 5 months since I broke ground on creating a food forest in my city backyard. What started out as this now looks like this. In this video, I want to give you a tour of what everything looks like and why I designed it the way I did. But first, let me tell you a story. In 2021, I followed my heart in search of what it means to live the good life. How do I define what true wealth and true health looks like? Because although I had enough money and wasn't sick, I was deeply yearning for feelings like joy, wonder, contentment, and fulfillment in my modern lifestyle. And so, I packed up my bags and set out on a journey to find some answers. On this adventure, I befriended so many people who taught me skills I'd never acquired as a girl who grew up in the city and in the suburbs. They taught me how to forage and read the landscape, to follow the tides to catch fish and squid, taught me how to make a home. And to grow food. So much food. And every time I witnessed dreamy places that people had created from deep within their hearts, it made me realize how much I wanted to do the same. In all of these spaces, I kept coming across the concept of permaculture, and I knew I wanted to incorporate those practices into my project. So I came home and started dreaming of what I could do in the small space I had to recreate that magic for myself. Because I only have 1/5 of an acre, I knew I had to utilize every inch of space I had to grow all of the food I wanted. I liked the idea of creating a food forest because you can utilize all levels, high, middle, and low, for growing useful fruits, vegetables, and medicinal plants. I first needed to plant all of the fruit trees since they take a few years to start producing any fruit. I went with buying bare root fruit trees over ones in pots for several reasons. They're a lot cheaper, a lot lighter because they don't come with soil, and you have access to the roots, which is great because they can't get root bound, plus it's easier to inoculate the roots directly with mycorrhiza. I also wanted to experiment with various types of fruit trees like apples and pears that are considered to be tricky to grow in my hot climate, and by buying bare root, I was able to stretch my budget further to get more trees while keeping the mindset that if some die, I would at least learn something from it. My overall goal was to have as many different varieties so that I can stagger their harvest seasons and have a constant supply of fruit instead of getting too much all at once. I also didn't follow spacing recommendations because I plan on pruning them to keep them smaller. So far, we have persimmons, mulberry, figs, blackberry, peaches, grapes, loquat, apple, pear, yuzu, and oranges. Underneath the fruit trees, I planted various perennial plants. Some are edible like asparagus and artichoke, while others are functional like comfrey, which has a long taproot that can mine for precious minerals. The leaves can be used to feed other plants either with the chop and drop method or by making compost out of it. I also planted medicinal plants like artemisia, which I plan on making tinctures and bitters out of. They apparently do really well in the intense heat that we get, which is also a plus. I also planted a maypop, which is a native cold-hardy passion fruit. It'll provide fruits, beautiful alien-like flowers, and also a habitat for the Gulf fritillary butterflies. Yarrow is another popular permaculture plant, and I love how it looks. It can be used for healing wounds, but I mostly cherish it for its feather-like appearance. Beauty is just as important as function in a food forest. Vining plants like melons and squash sprawl along the ground in between the fruit trees, making use of the sun while the canopy is still open. Not only do they provide food, they also create a ground cover which will help break down the wood chips faster, eventually turning into rich humus. We also planted sunchokes for their delicious potato-like tubers and to provide some dappled shade on the southwest side on some of the young fruit trees. One of the principles of permaculture is to stack functions, and I think the sunchokes and squash are perfect examples of this. I think up until I embarked on my adventure, I was always waiting for other people's creations to entertain me. Whether that was a new show to watch or a new restaurant to pop up in my city, I wasn't being an active participant in the creation of an inspiring experience. And no matter how much money I spent trying to buy that satisfaction, something always felt lacking. But things look different now. We can grow rare fruits and vegetables that you'll never find in stores and are constantly being surprised by the biodiverse habitat we've created. We've gotten into fermenting the food that we grow and have been blown away at how intense the flavors are of freshly picked food grown in nutritious soil. We've moved away from a life centered around consumption and are now living a life centered on creation. We're so deeply fulfilled by what nature can provide for us, and it only took reimagining a lawn to get it all started. I'm so excited to see how our food forest matures and grateful that I found permaculture to help us on this journey.